Well, welcome everybody to the first little sports rant that I'm going to do on here. Tony's been all over my arse to get this done. I'm just going to jump around, talk about different sports, kind of stories that, chat my ass, caught my fancy, whatever it ends up being. So, first things first, I'm going to jump into baseball, even though it's nowhere near baseball season here. And the first story was a couple weeks ago. I noticed that a pitcher for the Indians named Fausto Carmona was arrested in the Dominican Republic for using a false identity. He ends up, his name is something completely different. He's 3 years older, all this. Now they're talking he may have issues getting back into the U.S. to get a work visa. It's amazing how these people, the people in the Dominican Republic they're trying to get out of the poverty so much that they lie about their age, their name, all this kind of stuff. The other question is, if he knows he's using a false identity, why the hell would you go back home? Why would you go back there? Why wouldn't you have your family? He's making millions of dollars. Why wouldn't you have your family come here? Whatever. Damn, it affected my team, though. Losing another pitcher, just what we need. So, on baseball, the big story right now is Prince Fielder, who was the second best hitter on the market behind Albert Pujols, free agent market, that is, looks like he's going to sign with the Detroit Tigers for a staggering 9 years, $214 million contract. This just blows my mind. I can't get over how much these guys can make. And there's only been three other contracts in baseball history that have been $200 million. Two of them went to Alex Rodriguez, and one of them went to Albert Pujols. Prince Fielder does not he puts up good numbers, but he is not like first ballot Hall of Famer type numbers. And I know A-Rod used steroids and all that, but putting that aside, it's still the idea that his numbers speak, whether he cheated or not. His numbers are insane. Same with Pujols, and there's nothing on Pujols, but he's a first ballot Hall of Famer also. So as a result, it's like, how do you give Prince Fielder $200 million for good numbers, but not amazing numbers? Again, his numbers are similar to Pujols, except he's not quite as good of a hitter. He's as good of a power hitter and drives in runs, but he's a defensive liability. Whereas Pujols is a very, very good first baseman, and Pujols is also very good at running the bases. I don't know. It's just insane to me. I don't know. And the other question is, who was bidding against the Tigers in this? Like the teams that we're talking about signing Fielder all were like balking at the fact that, at like $150 million contract, and the Tigers just crush it with 214. It just reminds me when the Yankees signed Sabathia, and everyone else was at like buck 25, like $125 million, and the Yankees are just like, well, here's 140. They didn't beat it with like a 130 or add an extra year or something like that. They just friggin' just dumped 25 million or 15 million more on top. So, whatever. That's baseball. Couple months, can't wait. Few months, pitchers and catchers start reporting for spring training, and I can't wait. I love me some baseball. So the other, obviously the big story right now is the Super Bowl is coming up. So last week on the podcast, Tony and I picked we picked opposite teams. I picked the Patriots and the wow, my mind just blanked. The Giants to win. And, I crushed Tony in the picks, went 2-0. Anyways, so my pick for the Super Bowl, I'll talk about that on the podcast. I'll leave that off of here. But, anyways, we did, I'm not really surprised. The two teams are two of the best teams right now. I mean, they're playing the best football. There's some things that were a little dicey with some officiating, and Jim Harbaugh talking about how one play Ahmad Bradshaw got stopped. They ruled that forward progress was stopped, so they blew the whistle. The Niners caused a fumble afterwards, and he was saying that he felt that it should have been a fumble. People complained in the Patriots game about Lee Evans' catch that they felt was a touchdown, and as a Detroit Lions fan, my feeling is if Calvin Johnson can't catch a football, get 2 feet down, hit his ass cheek on the way down, and that's not a catch. There's no way in hell Lee Evans, maybe as his second foot was hitting the ground, he had possession of the ball. There's no way in hell that's a catch if the guy's swatting it out of the way around the same time. So, tough nuggets, Ravens fans. Deal with it. The other big story with the NFL right now is Peyton Manning. And he's been hurt all year. It looks like he's going to be in a situation where it looks like the Colts may make the very difficult decision to cut him, which is, I mean, every team's got to move on. If you have a Hall of Fame quarterback, Joe Montana was traded, this has happened, but it's staggering how a guy with Peyton Manning, that I understand they're scared to death about his neck, and if his neck is hurt, like things are coming around, then it's very possible that he's, I don't want to say done, but one hit away, kind of a thing. And it is $28 million for that roster bonus, so that's probably, but still, it's insane how we're at the point that people, or that the teams are going to cut a guy who, again, he retires today, 5 years to the day. He pretty much, as soon as he can, he walks in the Hall of Fame. So it's crazy. He gave an interview the other day. Basically, it sounds like he's making it easier for the Colts to cut him. Basically saying that, although he wants to stay in Indy, that, he understands it's a business and, hey, these things happen. So, what are you going to do? So he can just go be a goofy-looking bastard on some other team and, probably get them to a Super Bowl or close, depending. I know there's obviously some teams that are hoping, the Dolphins or the, the Vikings. I don't know. He probably wouldn't play there, but Arizona, I'm sure, would be all over him. Another thing I wanted to talk about was after last week's games, the poor guy, the kick returner for the 49ers, Kyle Williams, who fumbled 2 kicks. One grazed his knee. The other one, he was trying to make a play. Guy stripped the ball. I feel so bad. Like, almost immediately after that game, people were sending this guy death threats on Twitter about how they hoped his family would die, that him, his wife, and his family would all die. And I was like, I wish there could be some sort of a governing body that could just step in and say, okay, you're not allowed to watch sports anymore. You're done. You're an idiot. Like, who the hell would wish death on someone just because they make a mistake on a couple of plays? Come on. No one picked the Niners to really, no one picked them to be a Super Bowl threat this year. With a new coach, they still had Alex Smith. They had good defense, the running game, but no one expected them to do what they did. They had a great year by anyone's mind. So it's like, you know what? Just get over it, man. Just enjoy the win. Enjoy that your team did well this year. There's a bunch of teams out there whose fan base doesn't know what a Super Bowl contender even is. They haven't seen it. I'm talking about, I'm a Lions fan. They're, finally getting to where they're a threat. The Browns haven't been relevant in a while in this area, so just deal with it, dude. Just settle down. Just be happy your team's back to being good again, and, odds are they've got a couple years on what they've got here. So we got the NBA season shortened by the strike, which is kind of, I don't know, whatever. It's a bunch of garbage. Players and owners can't get together and decide, how they're gonna split this money. But so they finally get together, get the season started. It's gonna be shortened by 20 games. A lot of teams are gonna have I think every team's gonna have like a back-to-back-to-back game. So it's could be interesting. On some of the nights, the teams are gonna have to rest older players like Kobe and the Big Three in Boston, or the Spurs players that are a little older may have to rest one of those games so that they're not too beat up. I can't believe how terrible a few teams are. Like the Detroit Pistons are absolutely god-awful. They've won, I believe it's 2 games, Some teams, I don't know, it's just like they went out and spent money a couple years ago to bring in Ben Gordon, Charlie Villanueva, and then this past year, and then, they amnestied Rip Hamilton's contract to get it off the books because he had a falling out with the coach and everything. I don't know. It doesn't look like they really did anything though, and I know they're trying to get younger and everything, but it doesn't really look like they added any pieces this year. But I don't know. And some of the other teams, Miami looks great, which when you have those 3 guys, even with Dwayne Wade being hurt for a few games here, LeBron and Bosch are better than most teams' 2 superstars. So it's, they're going to be good. What are you going to do? I mean, if you put a gun to my head and said pick your favorite to win, they've got to be the number 1 team. They've got a better bench this year. The Lakers have fallen off. Dallas lost Tyson Chandler. Yeah, there's just so many things that happen that I just don't think is going to stop the Heat so much this year, unless they get in their own way. They did that a little bit last year, and well, they lost. So, we'll talk about NBA more some other time. But the NHL All-Star Draft is coming up, and I love this. The All-Star game got to be where it was a joke. You'd have games ending in like 13 points and whatever. The only part of the All-Star weekend I ever cared for a while was the skills competition, which is pretty cool. You get to see who can shoot the fastest, has the fastest shot, the most accurate. They have skills contests. Now they added a goalie skills contest, which is amusing because some of the goalies fall down and slide all over the ice. Which make you feel good because a guy like that, it's like, hey, if this guy who's been skating all his life throwing himself all over the ice, I don't feel so bad. But they added to where now the 2 team captains are selected, and then they do a fantasy draft to where it's basically like the old time on the schoolyard, to where it was like both guys line up, and then it's like, okay, I pick this guy until there's no one left. Then they'll play the game, and it's fun because guys from different teams can end up on or from the same team can end up on opposite teams, and you get to see players playing with players that they don't normally play with, or if you have a bunch of guys from one team on there, they get split up a little bit, and you can have a little fun with that. It finally adds a little interest for me to the All-Star game, and I still am not sure if, much like the NFL, the All-Pro game is, or the Pro Bowl game, not the All-Pro Bowl, the Pro Bowl game is this weekend. And I don't know if I'll watch it. It's all right. There's no tackling in it. They don't really play defense. It's generally a bunch of offense. So, players get a check. They usually, whatever. But I don't know. I don't really care. I think that's pretty close up. And I got one last thing, and that's the Joe Paterno death this past week. And this is one of those stories that, I see on ESPN they keep talking about. They keep highlighting the good of the guy's career. He graduated a lot. He had a high graduation rate. He had a lot of guys come through his program that have gone on to be productive members of society. They've, been good guys. And yet right now, all anyone's going to think about is the whole Sandusky thing. And I understand that, And I'm still not 100% sure where I stand on this. I kind of lean towards... The example I gave somebody the other day was the Pete Rose situation. Pete Rose holds the record for the most hits in Major League Baseball history. He always was known for hustling. He's part of World Series teams. He was a coach. But all anyone remembers is that this is the guy who bet on his team in baseball. That's all anyone remembers of the guy. He's not in the Hall of Fame. He's, and no one really feels sorry for him because for a long time, he just didn't get it. He didn't understand. So now we've got this situation with Paterno. And this guy coached at Penn State for like 50 years. And like I said, probably introduced a lot of good, fine, upstanding people to society. And that's great. But I don't know. It just... Coaches are like parents. And if you have 10 kids and one of them does something awful, you're not a failure necessarily, but that's all people are going to remember. They're going to remember that one bad seed, the one kid that's an axe murderer or something. And with Paterno, this just isn't going to go away. We're talking about a situation where, a guy allegedly molested children. And most people look at that as, one of those crimes you just can't overlook. We're not talking about some players that cheated on test scores or got caught drunk driving, things that could have, like drunk driving can have a serious ramification, but a lot of these athletes, they just get pulled over after a party or whatever. But I don't know. So that's about all I got, though. leave a little comment dealy down here. Subscribe to the whole whatnot. Check out the podcast once a week. Don't throw a lot of sports stuff on there because most of the people we know probably aren't listening to that for the sports. But I'll jump here maybe once in a while. Tony will join me or other people will join me. I don't know, whatever. If you got any questions, saltylanguage@gmail.com. Any topics you want me to talk about, post a response. Maybe I'll, just jump right in and leave you a message. So I think that's going to wrap her up for this time. So until, I don't know, probably next week. I'm going to try to do this once a week, about 15 minutes or so. So, all right, well, until then, that's been Salty Sports with Brian. See ya.